Many Americans think of North, Central, and South American history in terms of colonialism, a few hundred years of history. These people have a history dating back tens of thousands of years. Indigenous Peoples Day was celebrated in Newton this week, and Arlington took part. A dog is attacked by a coyote in Arlington recently. What's up with these coyotes, or coywolves, as they are also called? Tonight, a response from Arlington police. The leaves are trying to change this fall, so what's the holdup? Leaf-peepers are growing ever so impatient. What is changing drastically is Cleveland Street, where ghouls, goblins, skeletons reside. And let's face it, this guy needs to see an ophthalmologist. ACMi News takes a ghoulish trip to Cleveland Street as All Hallows Eve quickly approaches. All this and much more as ACMi News starts right now.
From McLennan Park to Spy Pond, from Poets Corner to the Mystic River, we have Arlington covered. We're your neighbors, a friend you can turn to. This is ACMi News.
Good evening and welcome to this week's edition of ACMi News. I'm Nicole Garay.
And I'm Paul Werlin. Glad you could join us. Volunteers from the Arlington Human Rights Commission celebrated Indigenous Peoples Day in Newton this week for the Indigenous Peoples Day ceremonial celebration at Albemarle Field. This was the largest Indigenous Peoples Day event in the area. It was an outdoor, family-oriented celebration of Indigenous culture, art, and history. History that goes back centuries before Christopher Columbus was born. This inaugural yearly event featured over 40 artists, performers, speakers, vendors, and community organizations, and was open to all residents of neighboring towns, including Arlington.
This is the first time Arlington is commemorating Indigenous Peoples Day. We first got involved with Native American activists maybe a year or two back, and we tried to work on a whole process whereby we actually passed the bylaws to be able to replace the holiday from Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. So we presented to the select board earlier this year, at the beginning of this year, and then we scheduled an article which was voted upon by town meeting in April of this year and was overwhelmingly passed. So we're very glad to have worked with a lot of Native American activists to get that done in Arlington.
Town leaders say they hope as this event expands that even more Arlington volunteers and just those who are curious about Indigenous peoples and their history show up for next year's event.
This colorful and meaningful event made time for celebrating ancient cultures and all the tribal nations from Canada to South America, and it's one step in rewriting history. ACMi News was there. Here are sights and the sounds of Indigenous Peoples Day earlier this week.
My connection to it is that I am Indigenous from the Western Hemisphere.
Why is it so important to expunge Columbus Day and pronounce Indigenous Peoples Day? What I learned in my history class was that Columbus discovered America and that was it.
Exactly. Well, the reality is that we, the Taino people, were the ones who discovered Columbus, and we end up being just a footnote in history. And that is one of the reasons why it's important for us to put ourselves in the forefront and tell the real story. The story is told by the victor. It is his story, after all, you know. But the victims of this, what we call the Holocaust, you know, are unknown. Most people don't know who the Taino were back then, who the Taino are today. We were declared extinct, and the reason for the extinction comes from many different avenues. It's not one thing that brought us to this extinction narrative. But we were declared extinct, and it wasn't until the late 90s when, you know, DNA studies and things of that nature, severe, intense research brought us back to the forefront.
Because of public education, because of how our students are actually treated within classrooms, Our students are going to classrooms, they're standing up for the stories and the knowledge that they've learned in homes. They're hearing these stories about Columbus, they're hearing the stories about the land that they're on, and they're actually standing up and saying, no, this is not what I was taught by my grandmother, this is not what I was taught by my mom. And sometimes they're often disciplined for that. And so in making this change from Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day, we're actually affirming knowledge that's taught in the homes and being stood up for by our students and by our elders as well.
I think Americans, especially white America, considers history to be Ben Franklin, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and everything else. Your history goes back thousands of years.
Yes, and I am a guest on these lands. I am from the Tunica Biloxi tribe of Louisiana. Our figures, our landscape is completely different from where we are right now on the homelands of the Massachusetts, the Nipmuc, the Wampanoag. But at the same time, we have a very shared history of cultivating all of the lands that have been here since time immemorial. So, you know, we're looking at this story of 500, 200 years standing up against millennia. And you're actually seeing the people that have been here for all this time. That story is starting to come forward once and more.
We all learned that, didn't we? We all learned this BS. We learned lies, unfortunately, and we have to ask ourselves a question like, who is writing these textbooks? Who is promoting this sort of propaganda? And the answer is white supremacy. I know it's hard to hear, but that is the truth of it. And my emotional connection is that I want to end that. I want to decolonize. I want to end white supremacy. I'm an advocate and an ally, and I firmly believe that returning the land back to original land owners, to original land stewards, and working towards healing as justice and justice as healing, that's my emotional tie. And it starts with letting Indigenous people lead, even Indigenous Black and people of color leading. So that's my emotional tie. I'm here as an ally. I'm here to stand behind, support, uplift, respect, honor.
Since we're the Indigenous people, sometimes we come out to make ourselves seen and let people know we still exist. Many times people think we're in the history books, but we don't live in the present day, but we do. We have a long history.
One thing you have to understand is that Native American, Indigenous peoples' history is started here first, and everything else. You can't have American history without Indigenous peoples, and that is a fact. So, for people to know and not be listening to the sanitized truths, or they deem as truths, the sanitized history of America, they need to look at the true history and see the role that they played in that. And then they'll see that the Native people have been here and continue to be here. And we, we're the Narragansett, but there's many tribes across this country where this, where we live and have communities and have our own forms of government and exist and flourish today,
Organizers of this event say this is the first such event of its kind in Newton, and they're grateful for Arlingtonians coming down to Newton to share in this marvelous experience.
One Arlington family had a bad week last week. This after their Labradoodle was bitten in the neck several times and lost part of her ear in a coyote attack. The dog's owner suspected only took about 10 seconds when the dog came under attack by a coyote very similar to this one. It happened while the dog was out in the yard. You may recall 3 children in town have already been attacked by coyotes in the past 2 months. Town officials say some Arlington residents, maybe more, are leaving food out for these animals. And coyotes, like other predators, can equate humans with food when that occurs. Our James Milan talked to Chief Julian Flaherty last week, and she says if you become frightened when you see a coyote, call the police.
And we really want people to know that it's okay to call the police department. We have our animal control officer who works Monday through Friday during the day and will respond to coyote sightings, but it's okay to call the police department if you have some concerns and you see a coyote and you want us to come and take a look and see if the coyote is acting, if the behavior of the coyote is not normal.
Incidentally, the dog survived the coyote attack. Arlington's police department received 13 unwanted firearms, no questions asked, during a Safer Homes, Safer Community gun buyback program at the Winchester Country Club this month. The event was held along with the Middlesex Sheriff's Office, Winchester Police Department, Arlington Human Rights Commission, and area faith-based organizations. Police told ACMi News 9 handguns, 2 rifles, and 2 shotguns were collected. Police say the firearms will now be safely destroyed by state police. Along with a no questions asked policy, the former owners were given a gift card. Faith leaders throughout the community raised funds for the buyback event.
Stop & Shop has announced a new pickup service at its Arlington store at 905 Mass Ave. Shoppers are now able to place an order on the website or the Stop & Shop mobile app. They can then head to the store on the date and time of their choosing, and Stop & Shop will load their groceries into their car. With the launch of its new pickup service, this grocer, for more than a century, can now allow shoppers to ease into the new school year by stocking up on essentials. With the click of a button, pull up to the store and have their groceries brought out to their car. An online pickup fee is waived on the first order. This is valid for first-time residential customers only in select zip codes. For more information, just go to their website, stopandshop.com.
World Mental Health Day took place earlier recently, October 10th to be exact, and in recognition of this day of awareness, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts offered free bike rides on the Blue Bikes on World Mental Health Day. Complimentary rides were made available within Blue Cross Blue Shield communities, Arlington included. This all came about because several studies indicate a positive link between biking and mental health. One recent survey found that 3 out of 4 bicyclists see a vast improvement in their mental health after taking up biking. Studies also indicate biking can improve your sleeping patterns, which help to reduce anxiety and depression. And with the sunny weather we've seen so far in October, that can only help.
ACMi's communication manager, James Milan, recently spoke to town manager Adam Chapdelaine on a number of topics facing Arlington in the very near future, one of which is the town's ARPA framework, how Arlington will be spending $35 million in federal funding from the American Rescue Plan Act. Here's an update on how town leaders are working to make sure the money that will be spent makes sense.
And my hope is to then take that, make further updates, bring it back on October 25th for what would hopefully be something close to a final endorsement from the board. And when I say final, I mean there are some things in the plan that are very well vetted, very well documented and ready to roll, like tenant assistance, like small business assistance, because those are programs that we've already run with CARES Act money from earlier in the pandemic. And those are monies that we really want to get on the street to help people that are in need as soon as possible. There's other things that are part of the plan, like affordable housing investments, homelessness investments, that I am looking for support from a categorical or allocation point of view, but that once we get that endorsement, we'll need to do more work on to actually develop the plans for what exactly that spending will be. And we'll certainly come back to the board for more discussion about that. So I would say, we're looking for endorsement / guidance for being able to move forward on the multitude of things that we're looking at expending funds on under the ARPA framework. In terms of what's changed, there was a lot of attention paid, understandably, to premium pay for town workers that put themselves in harm's way throughout the course of the pandemic in terms of risk of transmission. There's been significant comments about wanting to properly invest in affordable housing. So I am working through some changes that would increase the proposed investments to affordable housing. I'm looking at food security, potentially making some changes there. I'm looking at whether or not we'll carve out specific funding out of the small business assistance for arts-based nonprofits in the community. I'm looking at whether or not we think it'll be eligible or that spending on translation services and community outreach will be eligible expenditures. And I hope that all cumulatively is evidence that we're trying to create a responsive plan that looks at what the community needs, responds to community needs, and then makes investments to hopefully meet those community needs. So more to come, but I think it's important for people watching this to understand it's a work in progress. We're committing a lot of time and effort to it. And even though the public comment period is closed, if anybody has thoughts, comments, or questions, they always can reach out to me, to either provide comment or see if there's any questions that I can answer.
To see this interview in its entirety, just go to the town website, arlingtonma.gov.
So far, the vibrant colors of the fall season are hardly to be seen in Arlington. Not this year anyway. The weather conditions we've undergone lately, a wet start in October to unseasonably warm temperatures and climate change, all mean many trees are reacting to the sun like it's late spring or early summer. This video was taken along the bike path. According to the U.S. Forest Service, temperatures and moisture are the main influences in the amount of brilliance of the colors we are used to seeing in the autumn months. Scientists also say a succession of warm and mostly sunny days, coupled with crisp but not so freezing nighttime temperatures, can delay the onset of fall colors by several weeks. And even though we all can enjoy the warmth of the sun, it's slim pickings for the ever-growing impatient typical leaf-peeper, whose window of opportunity is shrinking rapidly, and who begs to see the brilliant yellows and reds that make this area so unique.
There's music in the air coming to Arlington's Town Hall, music that hasn't been heard live indoors for some time. The Menotomy concert series will stage an opening concert at Town Hall, featuring the Lowell Chamber Orchestra on October 22nd at 7:30 p.m. The concert will feature Vaughan Williams' Fantasy on a Theme by Thomas Tallis and Mozart's Flute Concerto in G major, covering 300 years of music. This is the first time the auditorium is open to the public since the pandemic broke out 2020. Concerts are free, but a donation is greatly appreciated and goes directly to the performers.
And now it's time to go to Studio B at Arlington High School for this week's Ponderscope with your host, Sol Yudowski.
Hi, and welcome to this week's Ponderscope. This week, freshman student council meetings were held, and candidates gave their speeches. The voting ballots were also released. The results of the election should be out by the end of the week. We look forward to a great year with our newly elected members representing and working for our school. The Drama Club will open their curtains this weekend for their first production of the school year, Metamorphosis. Tickets are $10 for students and $15 for adults. You can get them in advance from Ms. Bissett by email or stop by her room 403. The next Drama Club production after Metamorphosis will be a musical, so stay tuned for audition dates and materials. It is still unsure whether the musical will be performed indoors, outdoors, or virtually. A musical has yet to be chosen. For any further questions, please contact either Mr. Byrne or Ms. Bissett with the email shown below. This year, Club Day will take place on Thursday, October 28th. On that day, instead of heading to advisory, students will have an extended C-block period from 9:44 to 11:14 a.m. Students will be dismissed by house to attend Club Day for 20 minutes at a time, the same way that they do for lunch. Specific times will be sent out next week. I'm Sol Yudowski, and that's it for this week's Ponderscope.
In the past, ACMi has always been proud to train and show off our interns who are seeking a career in broadcast media. I should know, I'm one of them. Here's our latest addition to the news family, Alex Acacia, and well, me.
I'm Alexandria Acacia, an intern here at ACMi. But when you think of the term intern, you may be thinking I'm going on coffee runs and holding a clipboard 24/7. But let me tell you a little bit about who I am and what I do here at ACMi. I chose to join ACMi to get back into reporting. I have a bachelor's degree in broadcast journalism from Suffolk University, and I wanted to be able to continue making media content for my portfolio. I became a news correspondent where I alternated as an anchor and reporter. The other interns and I worked as a group to produce great newscasts along with the ACMi staff. I got to get hands-on training in positions I didn't think I would do. I was able to technical direct, floor direct, and run the soundboard. Outside of ACMi, I am a writer at a Boston news station, WHDH 7 News, where I write for the weekend and evening shows. There, I get to see what goes on behind the scenes when the shows go on air. I love how I'm able to be a part of the newsroom, similar to my role at ACMi. I've learned that collaborating with others creates the best outcome for content. It eased my mind knowing that everyone is here to work together and learn at their own pace. Having people to help you and passing your knowledge on to others is what makes this place great. The best parts were when we watched the packages we produced and acknowledged our hard work. Taking on different roles taught me that it takes a village to deliver the news. My advice for those who have an interest in ACMi is to just join. These people here will help your creativity flow and have content to take home with you. Sorry. And as I leave here at ACMi, I will be taking my experience and applying it to my work as a writer in Boston. And as they say, it's a wrap. Reporting for ACMi News, I'm Alexandria Acacia.
Hi everyone, my name is Nicole Garay and I'm an intern at ACMi. I grew up in Sudbury, Massachusetts, and now I'm a student at Tufts University. I always have a hard time picking my favorite movie or TV shows, but at the moment I'm watching Breaking Bad with one of my friends, so that one's pretty high on the list.
Damn, that is good. That is very good. Okay, here we go.
I wanted to intern at ACMi because it seemed like a very welcoming place where I would be able to get lots of hands-on experience, which is great for an internship. My favorite part of production are filming and editing. I find it fun working with the camera and being able to capture all sorts of things. I like the editing process because you're able to bring all the pieces of your project together. If you wish to become an intern at ACMi, either in front or behind the camera, or both, give ACMi a call at 781-777-1115. We are now just days away from celebrating Halloween, and things are getting pretty lively, or shall I say, deadly, along Cleveland Street. I went there recently to see the progress of the horrific and macabre, and even in the daytime, it didn't disappoint. Just a quick ride down Cleveland Street, and it doesn't take long to run into the supernatural. Skeletons, zombies, and ghosts are among the creatures you'll see as Halloween night approaches and Arlington residents prepare by putting up their spooky decorations.
I think every year's getting a little more intense as far as decorations go. It's like a few years ago there might have been 4 houses that had stuff, and now, half the block is covered in decorations, and they're getting bigger, more interactive. They're pretty cool.
Adults and kids alike enjoy what Halloween decorations have to offer.
It's just a time for us to decorate and get out and walk around and see everybody else's stuff.
I like the decorations.
What do you like about them?
Well, I like the west. Yeah, I do.
It's now October, and that means that Halloween is here. The residents of Cleveland Street own homes, own cars, pay their taxes, but when Halloween comes around, it's like they're 10 years old again.
It's everything that a grown man and grown woman, kids, could ever wish for. So it's pretty cool.
We love it because it's still nice out,
Yep.
and so the children can come and enjoy the scenery, and we just like to have people have a good time.
And the best part is people are walking down the streets with their kids in the carriages or bike riding or what. I used to just see a lot of people and they all like to stop and look, and that's great. I love that. It just helps when everybody gets into it, and it's kind of contagious. So once you get, everyone starts doing it, and next thing you know, the street's a mob scene.
We started off with just a few little props quite a few years ago, and then as the Halloween season came, people kept coming, and we're like, well, let's add one more thing, and it's just fun to watch all the kids and the parents stop by during the day and at night, and it's just a fun thing to do, so more is best for us.
Neighbors tell us as Halloween quickly approaches and the weather stays warm, expect more Cleveland Street homes to be adorned with ghosts, goblins, gravestones, and spooky holograms that to this day creep me out.
That'll do it for this week's edition of ACMi News. I'm Paul Werlin.
And I'm Nicole Garay. Thanks so much for joining us.
We leave you tonight with some colorful kite flying in Robbins Park. With the weather we've been having lately, one wonders if we'll see such a sight at Christmas time, but we doubt it. Enjoy the weather before you have to break out the snow shovels. Good night.
You can always check out our latest segments and newscasts on the web at acmi.tv/news. And don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at ACMi News. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. You'll find us at youtube.com/ACMi News. If you have any news tips for us or wish to become a citizen journalist, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at news@acmi.tv or stop by ACMI Studio A at 85 Park Avenue.